We go for an introduction, a brief description of socio-economic situation in Mozambique. We consider methodology. We do analysis of performance in each pillar, which we have considered, and we consider approaches to increase access of off-grid sustainable energies, and then we come to conclusions and the recommendations. I must say, first of all, that there are remarkable developments in the energy sector globally. The efficiency of the loads have been increasing and the generation costs have been reducing, especially for renewable energies. It's important to make full use of these developments, particularly in developing countries, but this requires that we have an appropriate legal framework so that we can make a full use of these developments. At global level, I must say that the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development of the United Nations is the major legal framework, and particularly the goal number 7, which say that by 2030, we should achieve universal access to affordable, reliable, and modern energy services.
Professor Cuamba, sorry to interrupt. Sorry, do you mind putting the presentation into the whole screen mode, the presentation mode?
It's not the whole screen?
It's not, yeah, that one, you click that, okay. And then we can see the whole screen. Yeah, that's much better. Thank you.
Now it's fine.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, the issue of energy efficiency is considered, yeah, the sustainable development goals, and the need to increase the share of renewable energies into the energy matrix is another important issue. In this work, we have looked at the situation in Mozambique in terms of regulatory instruments, trying to see what is available and what is not available in order to see whether we can use fully developments that have been taking place in the world. I must say that this work was funded by the Belgian Development Agency, INABEL, through a support to the Energy Regulatory Authority in Mozambique, and we have been asked to contribute to this study. Let's come to see very briefly the socio-economic situation in Mozambique, socio-economic and energy situation in Mozambique. We must say, first of all, that Mozambique ranks in the position 180 among 189 countries in the world as far as the Human Development Index is concerned. In 2019, only 34% of the population had access to grid electricity. It's noted to have 30 million inhabitants in the country, and the residential sector is responsible for 60% of the total consumption, followed by transport 30% and industry 8%. So this shows clearly that this is we are in the presence of a developing country where these households so use more energy than the industry. In terms of methodology, we are using as evaluation tool the World Bank tool called the Regulatory Indicators for Sustainable Energy, simply called it RISE, which is being used by the World Bank in the world to assess the level of deployment of sustainable energies in the framework of sustainable energy for all. This tool considers 4 main pillars, namely access to modern energy services, energy efficiency, renewable energies, and cross-cutting issues. So these are the pillars that we are considering in this analysis. And in each of these pillars considered, we have introduced indicators, of what would be important to exist in each of the pillars. And then we have collected data in order to see exactly what is happening and what is not happening in each of the pillars. We come now to the analysis of performance by each pillar. We start by the access to modern energy services. The indicators that I have defined for this is the existence of an electrification strategy, the existence of a geospatial mapping for grid extension, the legal framework for standalone systems, the legal framework for mini-grids, the existence of a career in renewable energies. We also consider gender issues, and we consider existence of testing laboratories as an indicator as well. So these are the indicators developed by ourselves in order to see what is the situation in Mozambique. And the reality shows that only one regulatory instrument has been identified, which is the National Electrification Strategy. So from all these instruments that we have considered, the 7 instruments, only one has been developed, and very recently, this was in 2018. So it means that since 2018, we have a national electrification strategy in Mozambique. So before that, we didn't have, and it is very difficult to write projects because there was no legal framework for writing projects, in fact. Then we come to energy efficiency. We have considered 6 pillars: the national strategy on energy efficiency, incentives to efficient energy consumers and many grids, minimum standards of energy efficiency for selected loads, energy efficiency labeling, codes for energy efficiency in buildings, and involvement of the private sector in energy efficiency activities. Looking at what is happening in the country, we saw that none of these indicators are in place in Mozambique. So the country does not have a national strategy on energy efficiency. According to the information I have, and now the country has started developing this instrument, but it is not yet available. Coming to renewable energies, what are the many indicators that we have considered? So the legal framework for renewable energies, we have considered the planning for expansion of renewable energies, the incentives and the regulatory support for renewable energies, the injection of intermittent energies into the grid. So renewable energies are intermittent energies. Another indicator, the mapping of renewable energy resources, and then the involvement of the private sector in renewable energy activities. So these are indicators that we have considered in this study. Let us see. At the present moment, we have the Electricity Law or Act, which is from 1997. So it came not through renewable energies, but through electricity, but it covers also some aspects of renewable energies. Then we have a policy and strategy on biofuels for 2009, the policy for development of renewable energies, also from 2009, the strategy for development of renewable energies from 2015, the strategy for conservation and sustainable use of biomass, which is valid from 2014 to 2025, and the feed-in tariffs regulation, we do have that, which is from 2014. So I must also add, we have also a renewable energy atlas in the country. So we know more or less what are the renewable energy resources which are available and where, so that we can implement energy projects. So then coming to cross-cutting issues, here we could not define indicators, as this is an issue which is out of the energy field. We can only say what is available at the moment. So an investment law is available, which is valid for any sector, not only renewable energies. A land law, the renewable energy activities require the use of land. So land law is there. The environmental law, any activity in the country requires the undertaking of environmental impact, environmental and social impact assessment studies. So we have this. The water law, we have the water law. This is for hydro systems. The public and private partnerships law, this is available as well. The strategy for adaptation and mitigation of climate change. So renewable energies and climate change go hand in hand. So this all is available, and we have more all regulations on cross-cutting issues. These are the main ones which are required for renewable energy projects. Let me go now to approaches to increase energy access in rural areas. First of all, let us see what are the renewable energy resources which are available in the country. We start with solar. We have plenty of solar energy resources. Hydro follows with 18 gigawatts. Wind with 4.5 gigawatts. Biomass with 2 gigawatts. We also have a geothermal energy in the northern and central parts of the country, only with 147 megawatts. And we also have ocean energies, as we have a very long coastline, 2,800 kilometers of coastline, but these energy resources have been not yet estimated. So we don't know exactly what we have in terms of ocean energies. So this includes wave energies among others. Look at approaches to increase access of sustainable energies. We have as main technological options the use of standalone systems for electric use, but not only electric, for thermal use. Here we consider also the cookers. It can be cookers based on biomass, and cookers based on solar or renewable energies in general. They count among the standalone systems, or mechanical systems like water pumping systems based, for instance, on wind energy, mechanical systems. Then we should consider also the local thermal networks for heating, for refrigeration. This is in fact still coming, not yet available as networks, but it seems that with the activities taking place now, with the demonstrations which are being planned now, soon we'll have this type of networks. Then, of course, local electric networks. So we are talking here about the mini grids. So these are the main options in order to increase access to sustainable energy at the community level. Right now, as I said before, the main grid covers only 34% of the population. If we use only the extension of the grid, we can have serious difficulties in getting universal access to energy until 2030. So we have to consider these additional options in order to achieve universal access. So in terms of main applications, of course, rural areas are the most important for us. Some islands, some remote areas, some institutions, social, commercial, industrial, and also communities. After this, let us look at priorities in terms of regulation. As we have seen, so we are lacking many aspects of regulation in the country, and we cannot do all the regulation from night to day. So it's important to define priorities. So I would say urgencies in terms of what is important to do in order to go through the universal access of energy. First of all, we are considering the issue of tariffs. Right now, it's not possible that the private sector is involved in the construction of mini grids. Why? Because there is no regulation about the establishment of mini grids. All what we have so far is the power utility, EDM, providing electricity throughout the whole country and using an uniform tariff for at any place of the country. It means that there's a cross subsidy through the consumers of electricity. In terms of mini grids, it's not possible to use this approach. So it means that the tariffs have to be defined for mini grids so that the private sector can invest in mini grids. Another important issue is that of subsidies. In terms of subsidies, we should consider subsidies for import of equipment. So I mean equipment like for instance, PV equipment which cannot be fabricated locally. It needs subsidy in terms of import duties, or can be reduction of import duties or exemption of import duties, because these are equipment that for now we cannot produce locally. At the same time, special subsidies should be considered for local production. And many times we only speak about exemption and reduction of taxes. It is also important to consider subsidies which promote local production. And from the experience we have in the projects we have been having in the framework of cooperation with NTNU and the countries in the eastern and southern region, it seems that we are now in position to demonstrate some of our activities like renewable energy cookers, refrigerators, among other issues. So in order for the local production of this equipment to happen in the country, subsidies are necessary. And this is a weak point in this country. Many times it's difficult to provide subsidies for local production. Another important issue, which is considered here, is the grid code. So far, the country has a grid code, but the grid code doesn't consider renewable energies, or it doesn't consider intermittent energies. But if we implement projects on mini grids, then it's important to sell the excess of the electricity to the power utility. This is also valid for standalone systems at household level or at the institutional level. It should be possible to sell the excess of the electricity produced by selling to the power utility. This cannot be done without the definition of the grid code, which considers also intermittent energies. Another important issue that should be considered is that of quality of equipment and installations. This means that it's important that in the country we have a testing capability of the different equipments entering the country or equipment being produced in the country. We're talking now about the solar cookers, for instance, or solar refrigerators. We should have the capacity to test all this equipment in the country, so that by one hand we can help the people developing this, the companies developing this equipment locally. By the other hand, it's important that we manage the quality and see what is coming from outside, what has quality and what does not have quality. So it's important to have this in the country. Having said that, so I would like now to draw some conclusions and the recommendations. I must say that as we have seen during the presentation, so there are a lot of the instruments which are lacking in the country, but they should be available in order to accelerate the intake of renewable energies, both imported equipment and also equipment developed locally. This is very urgent so that we can go in line with the universal access of renewable energy according to the United Nations development goals. Urgent issues to be addressed are related to tariffs, very important, both for imported equipment, if it cannot be produced locally, and also for locally produced equipment. So subsidy for local production is very important. This is what we have been developing in the framework of the cooperation with NTNU and the countries in Eastern and Southern Africa have been doing. The issue of grid code is very important because when we'll start deploying renewable energy, particularly electricity, producing electricity from PV system, from wind systems, and so on. So we'll have access. So access will be produced and should be sold to the power utility EDM. So without a grid code, this cannot happen. Another issue is the quality of equipment of installations. This is linked with the capacity to test the equipment, the installations, but also with registration of installers of renewable energy systems. I must say that in Mozambique, for the time being, in order for you to do an activity in the renewable energies field, you need a diploma in electricity. But renewable energies is not only electricity, it has got a thermal part, it has got a mechanical part, and so on. So we need a career in renewable energies, which is not limited to electricity. During many years, electricity was a synonymous of energy, but for the time being is no longer a source of energy. We can have energy in different forms. So I end here my presentation, and I would like to thank all of you for the attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very